Hello everybody and welcome to the United Stand. Today is something I've been looking forward to doing for a very long time. How will Ole Gunnar Solskjaer line up Manchester United next season with signings, formation, and how will we be looking next year? I think transfer talk is absolutely fantastic, but we need to take a little bit of a time out. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be looking at how Manchester United are going to line up, the different formations, the different options we've got, and what these players will bring. New signings, but also current signings as well. So that's what we're going to be doing today. I'm very excited about it. Get your comments in below about what you're thinking about how we can line up, how you'd like to see us line up, what you're thinking about new formations, and what you're thinking about what Ole's approach will be next season. Because I think when you look at next season, that would be how Ole Gunnar Solskjaer would line up looking at the season we've just had. A back four, two holding midfielders, and obviously Bruno, and then three attacking players. Now, there are things that we can mess around with. There is a feeling that he'll try and mimic what Tuchel has done at Chelsea and play with a 3 so that it's a 3-4-3 when you're attacking and a back 5 when you're not. I think that would be quite... I mean, we'll talk about that and we'll show how that works in a moment, but I think that would be, in the first instance, quite a brave decision for Ole to do, considering I don't feel he's mastered a 4-2-3-1 before moving on to a 3-4-3 or a 5-3-2 or whatever it would be. So we'll talk about that. But first of all, look, that's a team that's got Camavinga in it, Sancho in it, and Varane. And as you can see, I've gone with De Gea in goal. I think it will be Dean Henderson, I've said, but I've got De Gea in goal, Wan-Bissaka and Shaw as the fullbacks, Maguire and Varane, Camavinga, Pogba, Bruno, Rashford, Cavani and Sancho. Now, we will not see that team starting against Leeds in August for various reasons. Some of those players won't actually sign for us. Some of those players will have left us. Some of those players will be injured. Some of those players will be recovering from Euros and operations. So we probably won't see that 11 ever. And obviously in goal, I think he will go with Henderson. But that 11 there to start off with, as far as I'm concerned, is a very, very strong title contending side. If you've got all those players playing to their total and utter limit and potential, and they mould and gel well together and there's good chemistry and you're playing the right way, why would that team not be able to challenge for a title? You've got goals from Cavani, you've got assists and goals from Bruno, you've got goals and assists from Sancho, you've got the goals of Rashford, you've got Pogba's creativity, you've got Camavinga's dynamism, tenacity and ability to win the ball back and play the ball forward. You've got Luke Shaw, one of the best fullbacks in the world. You've got Aaron Wan-Bissaka with a world-class centre-back next to him and a world-class right winger in front of him. You've got Harry Maguire doing what Harry Maguire does with Luke Shaw and leading and developing all the time and better for having a world-class centre-back next to him. And then you've got a world-class goalkeeper in goal, in David De Gea. Or you've got a very good goalkeeper in goal with the potential to be world-class, hopefully, in Dean Henderson. That team... Yeah, look, Man City's a fantastic side. Chelsea's a fantastic side. I'd never say we're going to win the league, but that, to me, would be an ideal starting point to go, yeah, let's go and win the league this season. So that is what you could do. Obviously, I do not suspect... I don't know whether we'll ever see a Camavinga, Pogba midfield pivot at Manchester United. And I think that's where I would start, because if you take Camavinga out of that team and if you take Pogba out of that team, then you end up exactly where we were at the start of the season. You end up with, sorry, not you, Sancho. You end up with Fred and McTominay in there, which, I mean, look, at the end of the day, there's Fred, and where's McTominay? So no Pogba. Well, you know, you could put Donny van de Beek in there as well. I mean, that's you could end up with that. You could end up with Donny and van de Beek in the midfield. Fred and Van der Beek in the midfield, and suddenly that team changes straight away, doesn't it? So the importance of bringing in a Camavinga, the importance of bringing in a Paul Pogba, that provides you with a team that's very different to a team that's got Fred and Van der Beek in it. Of course, it probably wouldn't be Van der Beek in there. It probably would be Scott McTominay in there, which, again, for me, is not really going to turn us into a title contending side. I'm sure I've got Scott McTominay here somewhere. 39. Scooby-Doo! Where are you? Scooby-Doo. There he is. Scooby-Doo. Let me just sort this out. So we're back there. We're back there. And that team there becomes a very different team to me. You know, you've got a good, very good back 5. You've got a very good front 4. But this is what I think, if he sticks with a 4-2-3-1 next season, this is what I think we will see. Maybe Pogba's left. Maybe we have got Camavinga, but he's got to adjust. Or maybe we've got Camavinga and, or we haven't got Camavinga and he's decided not to use him, or he's not bought him, or he has bought him and he's not going to use him. Van der Beek's still on the bench. Pogba's left. and you're left with that. Fred and McTominay in midfield. And that, to me, suddenly becomes a team that's fighting with the Spurs and the Arsenals and the Leicesters for third and fourth. Well, probably fourth, actually, because I forget about Liverpool, Chelsea, Man City. I think if you're going into a season like that with that, yeah, Varane's a brilliant signing. Sancho's a brilliant signing if we get Varane, of course. But that midfield has still got a massive hole in it. And the loyalty that Ollie and his coaches have to McTominay and Fred should not be understated. I think if you're asking me what I think next season will be, I think we will probably see McTominay and Fred starting the season together, because I think that is what Ollie wants to do. I think, look at what we're looking to do in that midfield. Paul Pogba, if he stays, wasn't playing in the midfield that often. Camavinga, if he came in, is 18. Is he going to throw him straight into a United side, especially when he's going to be part... I don't think he's going to be part of the French Olympics, actually. So, look, that's a very different prospect for me. And I think this is where coaching is going to be so important next season, and how he approaches next season, because... yeah, Camavinga, Pogba as a midfield pivot. Oh, yeah, let me have some of that. But McTominay and Fred as a midfield pivot, I'm like, look, I'm not saying it can't work. It didn't work last year particularly well, but we still came second. But I think when you buy Sancho, you want to get the ball to Sancho. When you buy Varane, you don't want to be sitting back with a back six and a deep line. You want to be pushing forward a little bit, especially if Henderson's this great sweeper keeper. You want to push higher up the pitch. So McTominay and Fred would have to push further up the pitch. Well, maybe McTominay and Fred pushing further up the pitch become a better midfield pivot. Maybe they don't. I don't know. But that, to me, becomes a team that I'm suddenly looking at the coach and going, what are we doing there? Are we going from second to fourth? Because you're going to have to really ramp it up to get that side to go and challenge for a title. And there'd be a lot of eyes on McTominay and Fred to see if they're capable of linking that very strong back four to that very strong front four. But that's if he sticks with a 4-2-3-1. Maybe he changes the formation up. We keep hearing of maybe this sort of thing happening, where Maguire goes there, Wan-Bissaka drops in here. Obviously, you've got Luke Shaw. Now, personally, I think if he was going for a back five, that's why I've got Telles there. I actually think that, you're probably better off going with something like that. We're better equipped for something like this, because we've got the three defenders there in Varane, and Luke Shaw can definitely play. So you could go with a back five like that. You still keep your two in there, and then you've got to lose somebody from the front three. So maybe you lose, I don't know, what do you do? I think you'd still keep Cavani. Maybe Rashford comes off the pitch and you do something like that. I mean, this to me is not ideal. That would basically be the 3-4-3. Well, let me just pull them back there. That would be... what's going on here? I've got loads of stuff that's not Fred. There we go. Fred, McTominay. So you become a 3-4-3 a little bit like that. I mean, that's not Manchester United for me. I mean, Telles can play as a left wing back. Luke Shaw can play as a left centre back. But I think Luke Shaw, as we've seen in the Euros, does his thing there. So you put Luke Shaw there. You put Harry Maguire there. You maybe put Varane there. You try this Wan-Bissaka as a right-sided centre-back thing. But then what do? You're going to put Sancho as a right wing-back so you can play... so you can bring Rashford in and do this. Put Rashford here and then Bruno into here and then Rashford into here, and you do that sort of a thing like that. I don't know. Or do you bring Trippier in? In which case, Sancho goes there, Rashford goes to the bench with Martial and Greenwood. I don't see... The big problem with me is if you're going to play and let's go back to the four. But look, if you're going to play a back five or a 3-4-3, which Manchester United may well do, if you're going to do that, then the problem for me is always going to be that midfield area, because 3-4-3 with two wing backs, 4-2-3-1 with a back four, the problem is still going to be that midfield. And if you play with a back five, you better turn Rashford and Sancho into the wing backs, which you can't do. You've got to keep Luke Shaw as the left wing back, and you're going to make Sancho a right wing back. People are talking about, let's play a back five, let's play like Chelsea, let's have Wan-Bissaka in there as a right-sided centre-back, even though his big asset is slide... I mean, have you ever seen a slide tackling centre-back? But maybe this is the new thing. Maybe it is. But my issue with anything, whether it's a 3-4-3 or a 5-3-2 or a 4-2-3-1, the reality is it all comes down to the midfield. And if you do play with three centre-backs, like Chelsea do, and two wing-backs, you're going to lose an attacker because you can only play a front three. Look at Chelsea; they'll play Werner, Mount, and Pulisic or Havertz or someone like that. If United play with the front three, they're going to have to play Bruno, and then you've got Cavani, Rashford, Sancho, Martial, Greenwood for the other two spots. You're benching a player. It's the same problem that England have had. You're benching. You've got too many attackers that are good. But when you play a three at the back, three centre-backs, you're basically playing a five because you've got to play with wing-backs. Well, Jadon Sancho's never a wing-back. He's never a wing-back and never should be a wing-back. So I can't see United going to a back five. I think we'll stick with a back four, and I think that's the right thing to do. But the problem is always going to be that midfield, what we're going to do with that midfield. And as I said, I keep McFred and McTominay there. McFred and McTominay. I keep McFred there, but ultimately, I do think that when it comes down to it, the whole point, the whole acquisition of somebody like a Kamavinga, if I can find him, is that... Where is he? No, that's who's that? There he is. He's there again. Camavinga is that he's 18 years of age, and people are like, oh, he's a box-to-box midfielder. He's not this. He's not that. I'm telling you now, Camavinga can come here. He can go here, but he can come here. He can take the ball off the back four and pass the ball. He can be tenacious and go and hunt the ball. He can patrol that. He can be anything he wants to be, Camavinga. And I think what the brilliance of the deal of signing Camavinga is that he can be anything he wants to be, and you can mould him into that sort of player. I don't think he's... I think it's so lazy, as I've said before, to call him a Paul Pogba type player. I think he's anything he wants to be, but his strongest asset is tackling, his athleticism, and his passing. Well, that to me is the player that comes in and just does this job every day of the week. That's where I want to see Camavinga there, just doing that. That's where I'd say to him, look, that's your role. We admire Declan Rice, but we don't want to pay 80 million quid. We want you to come in and do this job. And of course, look, there's a big danger with Camavinga, massive danger with Camavinga that, it fits in with United's policy of buying younger players who are very talented and then going and bringing, and then in a couple of years' time, they leave. Because in 3 or 4 years' time, Camavinga's only going to be 21, isn't he? Or 22. So you bring Camavinga in, he does really well in that position, and then you sell him. And look, that's not a bad that's a badly kept secret in relation to United, that they do like to buy younger players that are then going to go and be worth a lot of money if they work out. Ahmad's an example of that, and we've recruited a lot of other younger players as well. But Camavinga could be absolutely intrinsic with Paul Pogba, because there is this rumour that Camavinga wants to go to PSG, but PSG quite like Pogba. So I don't see a situation like this. I don't see a situation where we've got Camavinga, Pogba and Bruno as a midfield three. I think it would be a brilliant midfield, and that's why I've adjusted it there. I think when you've got McTominay and Fred together, you've got a static midfield two. I think if you bring Camavinga in and you've got Pogba and Bruno, you basically do create that triangle where Camavinga becomes the defensive source, and Pogba becomes the sort of player next to him who will track back, but it's not his out-and-out role. And then you've got Bruno, who will get involved, but is more of an attacking midfield threat. It's very much like what we did when Ollie... It's basically what I think Ollie wants to do. It's the Matic, Herrera, Pogba. It's the Matic, Pogba, Bruno, which is worse. That midfield three has worked for Ollie twice. When he first came into the job, Matic, Herrera, Pogba, and you had Matic in this Camavinga role here. You had Pogba, Herrera in the Pogba role, and you had Pogba in that role. And then the second time we had Matic here, Pogba here, and then Bruno here, and it worked really well at the end of last season, at the end of the season before last, when we first came back from the COVID break. So I think that's how Ollie wants to work, and I think Camavinga in that role would work really well. And again, I think you're back to a team there on screen that does do the damage. And of course, let's not forget, you've got Camavinga in that midfield if you can get him. You've got Varane as a centre-back, as I said, if you can get hold of him. But you've also got options up front, because you've got Anthony Martial, who can play up front. Anthony Martial in that team, he can fill that gap there. Anthony Martial can do that, no worries. And he can also drop into this position here as well if you need him to. He can, he's a sub. Sorry, that's not Anthony Martial. That's Mason Greenwood, number 11, isn't it? I don't know what I'm doing there. Anthony Martial is obviously number 9. So you've got Anthony Martial who can play in these two roles as well. So Anthony Martial becomes an option up front if Cavani can't play every game, and this is real quality. This is real quality that provides backup. Because I think that's really important as well. You've got Martial and Greenwood there as options up front if Cavani's not fit. But also Greenwood, as we know, can drop here if we need him to. Martial can drop here if we need him to. Sancho can drop over here if we need him to. So we've got lots and lots of options, but of course, so much of it comes down to what's going to happen with those two midfield players of Camavinga and Pogba. Can we recruit Camavinga? Can we keep Paul Pogba? And I don't think we can. I think it's very, very difficult for United to do that. But we do have this guy. Let me bring him off the bench. We've still got Donny van der Beek at the club. And I think Donny van der Beek, again, in this sort of a role, if Pogba... I suppose the question is, do you want Pogba to go to PSG and then we get Camavinga? Or do you want Camavinga to go to PSG and we probably still lose Pogba in a year's time? I think for me, Camavinga's it's weird to say this. I think Camavinga, if you've got to choose between Camavinga and Pogba, unless Pogba's signing that contract and saying United's the place I want to be for the next 5 years, I think getting Camavinga is more important because he can do this role. And then that allows you to play this sort of player, which ideally would be Pogba, but if Pogba's going, Pogba's going. I think Van der Beek can do that role. I don't know whether Van der Beek can do that role, in a static midfield pivot where you share the defensive responsibility. But I think with a Matic, which we can't use anymore, or a Camavinga who becomes that new Matic, then Donny becomes the player that can do that. And then again, I look at that team, and obviously I've got Greenwood up front instead of... let me just reset it. I've got Greenwood up front instead of Cavani, but that could be Cavani, that could be Martial. I've got Rashford to the left, Sancho to the right, Bruno's still doing his thing, Donny van der Beek, Camavinga, Luke Shaw, Wan-Bissaka, Varane, Maguire, and obviously a goalkeeper. And again, Pogba's gone. Goodbye, Paul Pogba. I don't want that to happen, but Pogba's gone, and I still look at that team and I go, oh yeah, all right. And then you've got Fred, you've got McTominay on the bench, you've got Lindelof as a backup centre-back, you've got obviously got Tellez, you've got Martial, you've got Cavani, you've got, hopefully Ahmed's still at the club. You've got real good quality. But I tell you what this does highlight as well, because what we're talking about is how United line up next season. What this does highlight as well is where does Jesse Lingard fit in if he signs a new contract? Where's Jesse getting into this team? All right, he might play at the start of the season because everyone's a bit tired after the Euros. But where does, if you're Jesse Lingard and you're watching this video, this is why I think you need to go to West Ham or Leicester or something like that. Because when everybody's back, how do you hold down a spot in that team, seriously? Without pulling off a ridiculous madness, which I don't think, I think even Jesse, on his West Ham form, he doesn't live with Sancho, Rashford or Bruno. He's not living in that house. He's not at that level. So how does Jesse get into that team? How does that, and I rate Jesse Lingard. I think he's the best example. But how does Mata get into this team? How does Mata get any game time? How does Matic get any game time? How does Dan James get any game time? You know what I mean? And this is it. I'm quite happy to have McTominay and Fred on the bench. I think that, if you can get this team out as much as possible, then that's your team that's going to challenge for the title. But, you pick up suspensions, everything. Fred's got to play in the game. McTominay's got to come off the bench. Well, that's fine. I don't have a problem with them in that role. But I do look at, how does Mata get involved in this team? How does Matic get involved in this team? It's very difficult to see. And look, there's a lot of games to be played. Of course there is. But I like it. I like that team a lot. And I think what's really interesting is that I don't see how you start using a back five. I just don't, because a back five, straight away with that team, you bring in an extra defender in, and then you take in one of these. 1, 2. One of those has got to go, because Bruno's going to play in a front three. Maybe Sancho plays in a front three, but Rashford comes off, and then you obviously stick somebody in as a defender or a right back or something like that, not Rashford. And that becomes your team. And also, I think, we're probably going to end up playing McTominay and Fred in here as well. So, that's the thing for me, is that we can all talk about let's try Wan-Bissaka as a right-sided in a back three. But you're still playing a back five for me. Chelsea play with a back five. They have 2 wing-backs and 3 centre-backs. I don't think that works for United in relation to the recruitment and depth of talent we've got in the attacking areas. So I don't fancy that. But I do like this. And I think this gets us back to our core principles of what Ollie was about. A back four, 1 holding midfielder, 1 box-to-box and 1 with more attacking licence. And we know that that's going to be Bruno. And then a front 3. And I think it works. It works really well. And of course, look, one thing's very important. Sancho is very disciplined. Dortmund are very disciplined applied. He will help Wan-Bissaka out more than probably Greenwood would have done. And Rashford used to be very good at this, but he's got to get back to doing it. He's got to get back, literally back. I think he's got a back problem, but I think he's got to get back to helping out Luke Shaw. Because that, if you're going to play with a front 3, you've got to have those wider players that are going to help out. But I like that. And I think that's what Ollie should stick with. And I don't know what you think, but I think it's a very interesting tactical look at how United could line up. And I think Varane and Camavinga, we're 2 players away from doing that. And when you work through that process, the Pogba situation doesn't become such a nightmare when you know you've got Donny van der Beek. But hey, what do I know? Van der Beek might get sold. That might not be what we look to do. We might start McFred. But if you play McFred, you're going to get that static midfield. And I think we need a staggered midfielder. Somebody whose responsibility is to protect the back four on his own. Somebody who's there to support that, but also support the attack. And somebody who's there to support the midfield, but be more attacking in Bruno. So yeah, smash a like on the video, subscribe. I hope you've enjoyed this type of content. It's something a little bit different, which I want to bring more into the show over the coming weeks and into the season, looking at the tactics and how we can work out. Because there's a lot of people out there saying 3-4-3 and all this jazz, but what people don't think about is when you play a 3-4-3, you're playing 5 defenders because you've got to play 2 wing backs. When you're playing 5 defenders, you're losing one of your front 3. You go into a 2 with Bruno. So that to me is not what I want to see. And I don't think it's United. You should never turn your back on changing. You should never turn your back on that. But is it Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to 3 years in change his formation? If a new coach came in and wanted to play 3-4-3, fine. But Ole's been here for 3 years now. He's never played with a back 5 really. Well, a couple of times he has. And he's certainly not done a 3-4-3. Would you want that to be happening in a pivotal season? Too much change leads to mediocrity. We shouldn't be changing. We should be keeping things the same and improving what... Because, like, yeah, you know what? Why do a formation change when you've not figured out how to deal with crosses into the box? You've not figured out how to do a low block. You've not figured out how to keep possession of the ball and keep the tempo up. Well, people say, well, a formation might change that. But they're core principles. I don't care whether you're playing a 5-3-2, a 3-4-3, a 4-4-2, a 4-2-3-1. The reality is you're still going to have to defend corners and set pieces well. You're still going to have to deal with breaking the opposition down. How are we going to break the opposition down better by losing an attacker just because we've got wing backs? How are we going to defend crosses better just because we've got 5 defenders? You know, we've got people like Harry Maguire and we're still conceding from crosses. So yeah, it's interesting, but I've really enjoyed that. It's been nice to just look at the Pogba solution as well, because I think there is one. Make sure you smash a like and subscribe. Finally, I just want to give a shout out. People have sent us emails on thatsfootballmedia@gmail.com. Thatsfootballmedia@gmail.com. So it's THATS football media. So that's football media. I'll drop it in the video description so you can see the full address. We're moving to the next stage now. We are really interested in people getting involved. Obviously we've done a bit of a round, you know, send a video in of Ollie if you want to get involved in presenting and stuff like that. That's still fine. You can still send that stuff in. But we've moved to the next stage now. We're looking at match day content. If you're a home and away fan and you want to get involved in vlogging or, you know, providing us with match reactions and things like that, this is a new area that we're moving into. That's footballmedia@gmail.com. Get in contact with us if you're match going fans. Home and away, be brilliant, or just home, whatever. Let us know. Get in contact. That's footballmedia@gmail.com. We're looking at vlogs as well if you're interested in that sort of thing, doing match day experience of vlogs. Obviously, I've mentioned before, videographers, sound people, things like that, writers, all sorts, as we move into the new season. So to get in contact with us, that's footballmedia@gmail.com, and we'll take a look at that. Thanks everyone for watching. I'll speak to you all soon, tomorrow morning by the sounds of it, unless something big happens. And I hope you have a fantastic evening ahead. And remember, we've got a Copa America watch along on That's Football coming up at 1 AM if you want to watch Fred in that as well. Speak to you all soon. That's footballmedia@gmail.com if you're a match going fan or anything like that. And I'll speak to you all in a bit. Take care.